Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Evolved. This is Tia Londa, your host, and I want you guys to stay right with me. Don't go nowhere, and we'll be right back to start another episode on Evolved. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Evolve. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Evolve, the podcast that builds one another up, sharing your opinions, your thoughts, ideas, beliefs, and your feelings, where you're never outcast for being who you are. Welcome to another episode of Evolve. I am Tia Londa, your creator and host of Evolve podcasts and episodes. It's a pleasure to welcome you. Thank you for joining me. So on this episode, the topic will be when God calls you to wait, why it's important to wait. So I'm going to jump right in. So when God calls you to wait, why it's important to wait. Have you ever wanted something so badly and didn't want to wait for it to be delivered? You just went out and got it from another source, only to find out it wasn't the real one or that it was the wrong one. But if you had waited for it to get to you, it would have been the right one, and it would have been on time. But because you wanted to rush it and couldn't wait, now you got all kinds of things wrong. It's not the correct one, not the right color, not the right size, and not the right fabric. It's all wrong. Well, that can happen to us when we rush relationships and even rush into a marriage or rush into ministry and even rush to do things we are not ready for or even equipped for. It may not be our timing or our position, but because we want to rush at it, we get it all wrong and messed up. It may be in the time we are being asked by God to wait. So, why would God want us to wait? When we are not ready for something, He may be developing us. Example, most times when you are not willing to wait and you go ahead and do it because you see Sue doing it or John, but when you do it, when it was your turn, you didn't deliver as they did. You were rushed, by the jealousy, greed, arrogance, competitiveness, and even being impatient. That's why you were called to wait, especially in ministry. I will share my own example, and it's happened to me more than once. I wanted to hurry and do my book study podcast, and I had prayed, and I said something, I don't know what it is, it was telling me to wait, but I didn't listen. I did it anyway, although it came out all right. I still should have waited because I didn't deliver as I wanted it or as it should have been. And I felt that even though I wasn't a pastor or evangelist or any of those titles, that I needed to wait, and everybody else was telling me it was fine, but I felt that I needed to wait because I realized that we are Christians and we are followers of Christ. It has to be the right timing, and I need to grow and be more equipped. I was scared and it showed, but most importantly, when I talk about Christ, it has to be correct and not a half-done job, because when one is judged, it's a good chance we all can be judged. Nowadays, when one fall, we all can be looked at, by that one mistake that was made by another person in Christ. We know that we're not perfect, but because Christ is so important, that we can't be incorrect when speaking or teaching about Him, and that's why I've had to even, perfect an episode or two sometimes, because I feel that strongly. I have to always remember that I have other brothers and sisters in Christ who I don't want to be, I don't want them to be looked down upon by any mistakes that I've made. That's why now I, will take my time and do my podcast, and now I will edit if I have to. I will have to, get over, as well as the shyness and the, being scared, and just kind of let God work through me. And if he says, wait, I'll do just that. So, and another one may be bondage. Needing God to rescue us from what is holding us in bondage, our own situations, our plans, our own power, our own control, and our own life and lifestyles. He may cause us to wait because he may need to free us or rescue us from the bondage before we can move forward. Having that bondage removed because it's about him and his life that we want to focus on, so he can work within our lives. When we are called to wait, it's not because we are out of control, but we are called to wait because you are listening to the counsel and the control of God alone. You're being under his control alone. You are trusting in him, the one who is calling you to wait. He is the one who is the wise one, loving and always good. So waiting, having to understand that you and I need to change. And, he is using the grace of waiting to reach, that very deep, that very, very deep personhood within us. And that's our heart that needs, that means we have to be changed within, our hearts to reach those, individuals who have made us bad in the past, being able to forgive those who have hurt us, and picking others up after failures. People who are asked to wait, are those who are loving towards others, and who have waited. They could become loving towards others. Many who were asked to wait, some haven't because they rushed, to a position or positions that they were not ready for. Therefore, when it was time to reach those individuals, they were not prepared. They were impatient, bitter, and selfish, and it became all too much. So that's why it's important for us to wait. So when we are asked to wait, waiting means surrendering, waiting means submitting, waiting means understanding, waiting means opportunity. When we are called to wait, we find that we are seeking, and what you are meant to have is that of identity, purpose, and meaning all of that in Christ. So that is all worth it when called to wait. So when God calls us to wait for a mate, how do you know that someone is sent by God to you? I didn't think that a person could be sent to me by God, since there aren't clear signs that he sent them necessarily. I understood that I needed to pray and discern, doing my very best, in discovering, his will for my relationship. Waiting has helped me tremendously, during this time or that time, praying for my mate to be that of the Christian faith, same as me. I realized that connecting to a mate who doesn't have his heart attached to Jesus as I do, the relationship is sure to fail, and it has failed, doing things on my own in the past. It's hard for me to be with someone not of the Christian faith now. I learned to wait on God because it helps, to avoid toxic relationships and being in a dysfunctional marriage, rushing into one. And after one, I learned that waiting on God, the process, will go quicker and smoother, by my waiting. I noticed that if we put, him in all places, we can expect a much better outcome than that of our own. And you can see that at 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 14. So I'd rather be waiting on a godly spouse than to be married to an ungodly spouse. It's worse on those terms. So waiting is a must for those who are called to wait. So why still should we wait? You will be better prepared for your future spouse rather than rushing to someone. You are, exercising patience. We all want something we don't have. A godly spouse that takes time and patience to reach us. Just because you don't have that doesn't mean you're unhappy and dissatisfied with what you do have in Christ. We may still have a longing for a godly spouse, but while waiting, we should take this time to be in the gospel and rejoice in the Lord during this time. Always, regardless of what we have or don't have, the focus still should be on Christ. Even in my unwanted circumstances, I still have joy in the Lord. And you can see Philippians chapter 4, verses 4 and 11 through 13. So whatever situation or circumstances I am under, I can find joy in the Lord. And while waiting, I can still rejoice in Him. In Philippians 3:8, we can find that. So while being Christian and single and waiting, we are learning that, learning the very best secret of all, is that learning that Christ alone is the ultimate joy of all, So, but when we can be assured that we won't always be called to wait, we can be assured of that. There will be a time we will have to take steps out on faith and move. We are to do that patiently because we've waited and kept strong in Christ. There will be, there will come a time, when He will say move. And you could see that in Ecclesiastes 3, 1 through 8. So you can find that there. I'm having a hard time saying that. So this time is very important because if you have been waiting, but still in that waiting you dipped and dabbed in a relationship, you won't be sure it's God telling you to move. But when you know God is telling you, you don't have to be asking yourself, is it God or not? You know if you should get into that relationship or, respond to a dinner date. You know because you waited, and now the seeds that you planted, you're now able to see, the growth of what you planted during that time. You're not in confusion, and you can trust God, being the one telling you to move forward. That is why waiting on God is so very important rather than doing things on our own. When, walking ahead of God, we won't know. This is so important, and, why it's important to wait on Him and His timing. So I am going to stop right here, and then I'm going to conclude in another segment. So stay right with me. Don't go nowhere.